Here we are once again, live in my hometown, Jacksonville, Florida. Not a lot of evening sun showing today, but you gotta expect that. Not every day is gonna be a sunny day. But I know it's behind the clouds, still doing its job. That's the thing about nature. It does what God says to do regardless of the situation. So yeah, I want to welcome everybody to this vlog of the evening sun, number 7. And I want to thank everybody for joining. Who do we have in the room? Is Ka in the room? I know Katrina jumped in. She in there real quick. Give me some names. I want to hear. Sakura's up in here. Sam and Cherie. Okay.
Justin, Jamie.
Jamie who?
Our Jamie.
Hey, Jamie, what's going on, man? So yeah, we're gonna have a good one today. I mean, it's really going to be an introduction of what I really want to get into on next week. Oh man.
St. Jenny is on.
Hey, St. Jenny. My soprano right there. Once we get into the meat of things on next week, it's so heavy, so involved. I just wanted to get people's minds, the blood flowing, start to think about this subject. How's it sound? Can we get some reaction on what the sound is like? Somebody comment and let me know y'all can hear me. Otherwise, I'll just be talking to myself. Yay, nay. Well,
Sound is good.
Sound is good. That's what I'm talking about. So, what's the topic? The topic today, and make sure you share this with those who you feel might benefit, who might be wrestling with, struggling with this particular topic. It's not an easy one. If you read the book on face value and just take one point of view, you might get confused. But when we were told that line must be upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. What does that mean? It means that you cannot just pick one verse out of the Bible and try to explain it. You have to compare, contrast to scriptures in other places to try to make sense. If you're wrestling with a particular verse, you have to compare and contrast and make sense of it all. So we're going to be talking about this immaculate conception. And I just wanted to take a look at Matthew chapter 1 today, just kind of get our feet wet in this particular subject. So there are those who feel as if this man, Jesus, had a mother who was impregnated by God or the Holy Ghost. So let's see what the Bible has to say about it. Some of the questions that arose when I was taking a look at this. Matthew chapter 1 begins, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. So it lets you know off top that this particular book or this chapter is going to be dealing with how Jesus was generated, or how he came to be, how he was made. It says that he was the son of David and the son of Abraham. So, as we have been discussing throughout our talks, this book is really dealing with the Israelite plight. Most of your main characters in the book, and including this man Jesus, were Israelites, descendants of Abraham, descendants of Isaac and Jacob. So one thing that you must understand about the Israelite way is that it is patriarchal in nature, meaning when you list genealogies, typically you're going to relate it to how the person came to be through their father. And as we look through, I won't go through this entire list, but as we look through this chapter, it talks about all of the men, starting from Abraham, how it came through down to David, down all the way to Joseph, who we will find was the father of Jesus. So the question I had was, well, if he was conceived by something other than Joseph or his father Joseph, why would they list this genealogy going through Joseph? And I mean, they go on about, let's see, 16 verses talking about how Jesus came to be through Joseph. So why list all of that if Joseph had nothing to do with it? So that's the first question. So the second question, the thing that you have to understand when we start to talk about this, I mean, you really have to give a backdrop or a backstory. There are a lot of customs in the Israelite tradition that you find in the Old Testament. Now, some people say, well, I only read the New Testament. Well, the people in the New Testament prescribe to the teachings of the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament. So to understand the things that they were doing, to understand the things that they were recording, to understand their point of view, you have to have some backdrop or background in the Old Testament. So when you're talking about the story of Jesus, how he came to be, you have to understand that there were particular rules, there was a particular way of doing things in the Israelite nation when it came to being what we call engaged to a woman, being, the Bible says in Matthew, espoused to a woman. So, you know, all of this we're going to go into detail on next week, but I just wanted to get you started thinking. So, I mean, if you want to go in and start to kind of research what goes into being espoused to a man or to a woman in the Israelite tradition. See, nowadays you just see a lady that you like and, ooh, I want that one, and you try to do whatever you need to do to make that happen, but it was not like that. Look at that evening sun. That's what I'm talking about. It was not like that in the Old Testament. There were rules. Sometimes a woman or a damsel or a virgin her father had plans for her. he had plans for a certain young man to marry her, and she did not even know. So dive into those rules for next week. So when you read a verse like verse 19, where it says, verse 18, it says, "Now the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise. When as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, before they came together." Now a lot of people feel as if when it says before they came together, that it's talking about before they did their thing, if you understand what I'm saying. But we'll come to understand that when it says before they came together, it means before they had officially went through the marriage ceremony, the marriage feast, the marriage party. Again, there was a certain way things were done. And it says they were engaged, but before they went through the ritual of marriage, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. So again, we have to understand what was involved in that ritual. So I want to get you to start thinking there. Verse 19, it says, "Then Joseph, her husband," hold on. "Then Joseph, her husband." I thought they hadn't come together yet. Just in the last verse it said they hadn't come together. But all of a sudden, he is her husband. What does it take for an Israelite man in the Old Testament? What does it take for an Israelite man to be considered the husband of a woman? There was a process. So we'll start thinking about that. Again, we'll go more into depth next week. And so look, it says, "Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man and not willing to make her a public example." Understanding that in these days and times, it's really not uncommon to see a woman who is not married having a child or with child. Not uncommon nowadays. But in that day, it was punishable by stoning. And this man Joseph, seeing that she was with child, it says he did not want to make her a public example. He thought to put her away privily. You know, they talk about in the old days, we don't see it or we don't hear about it too much now, but they had this thing called what? The shotgun wedding. Meaning if you get my daughter pregnant, you are about to get married. So it was very serious business. And when you have, back in the old, I'm talking about in modern times, they would sometimes send a young woman away from the family for a certain amount of time. They would say, for example, you lived in Florida. You would send this young woman, North Carolina, Virginia, you would send her away, have the child, and come back so there would be no evidence of the deed. So this is what we see Joseph wrestling with. Now, the other thing that I thought about when I was letting these scriptures marinate, now if I'm a young man and I am interested in a woman, I'm just talking about me now. This is before marriage. See, we on the lock now, but but before that, if you're talking to a young lady, right? Say, for example, y'all met on the 4th of July, 2018. Had a good time. Man, this is the life, right? I had a blast with her. So y'all decide, I'm going to keep in touch with her. She stays maybe 1,000 miles away. Y'all keep in touch, yada, 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 right? But you don't have the means to get to her. She doesn't have the means to get to you, but y'all are keeping in constant communication. Y'all love each other. It's progressing. Oh, baby, I love you. No, I love you. The whole thing is going on for about a year, right? So here it is, the next 4th of July. We're going to meet up again. And as I cut the corner, I see that you are pregnant about 6 months. Now, I know I didn't do that, right? So what's my mindset? Am I going to be worried in mind? No, I'm gonna be like, yo, you on some foul stuff. I'm not dealing with you no more. That's it. Call it off. It's a wrap, right? And I'm sure about 90% of the fellas feel me. Ladies might not like it. I'm sorry. But you just told me you was in love with me, this, that, and the third, but you 6 months pregnant, right? So we're going to call that straight off, right? But here is another example where you don't live 1,000 miles away. You live in my city. I love you, baby. No, I love you. And so y'all proclaim y'all love with each other. And 6 months go by and you see that this woman is pregnant. Oh my goodness. Now your reaction, if you knew that you did that, your reaction is going to be, oh man, has anybody out there ever had a scare? I want you to comment in the comments. Well, no, don't comment. Don't comment.
No comment.
If you ever had a scare, you was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get out of this, man? This is I done messed up. You're going to be really wrestling with what has happened. And so as we see, Joseph was more in the second category. He was wrestling with the situation. He did not see her and say, yo, you foul, deuces. But he was wrestling with how can we get out of this without her being stoned to death. Now, again, look into the history of what goes into an Israelite couple coming together. So he was worried in his mind. That's another clue. Just going to put that on the table. So we step down to verse 20. It says, but while he was thinking, oh man, while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife. The angel has called her his wife again. So again, look into the process. What does it take for an Israelite man and an Israelite woman to come together as husband and wife? So the angel, maybe the angel knew something that is not written here. He called Mary Joseph's wife right there. It's right there in black and white. So you got to know what it takes for her to be his wife. It says, For that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Ghost. And we'll get more into that as well. And he shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Very heavy phrase. He shall save his people. Who is his people? Somebody type it. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is being interpreted, is God with us. So let's just close that chapter out. Then Joseph, being raised from his sleep, as the angel of the Lord had bidded him, and took unto him his wife, and knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. So again, there are rules. It says, and knew her not. So somebody might say, well, look, he never knew her. He never touched her. But there are rules when a woman is having a child. And if you're not familiar with the Old Testament again, you would miss the fact that he had to follow certain rules, so there was a certain period of time where he could not touch her or know her. So just some things I wanted to drop in your lap for next week. Couple of scriptures for my scribes to look over. So we're going to start at Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 18. You can begin to look at Luke chapter 4 and verse 22, and also John chapter 6 and verse 42. And there is one other that I wanted to read in the Old Testament. Genesis chapter 49 and verse 10. And it says that the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people, his people, be. Right? So what should we look at, take out of this verse? So we got Judah. There is a scepter, meaning there is a certain royal lineage. There is a kingdom that shall not leave the tribe of Judah, right? So we know that Jesus was of the tribe of Judah. It says, the lawgiver shall not depart from between his feet. Now, what is between a man's feet? Wrestle with it. What is between a man's feet? Until Shiloh come. Now, do you know what Shiloh is? I just love this evening sun, man. Well, the better question might be, do you know who Shiloh is. So it's just some things to look into for next week. I'm looking forward to it so that we can kind of put to bed any doubt as to how Jesus came to be. It's an important question. It's an important topic. It has been used, like we talked about on last week, to deceive. Because, again, there is a certain power in knowing who you are. And if somebody wants to take away your heritage, if somebody wants to take away your language, in an attempt to strip you of all power, strip you of all identity, to deceive you into thinking something that's not true. You know, it's a related topic, but I'm not going to get too much into it right now. But I do want to mention the fact that Israel, who had a brother named Esau, they have a very strained relationship. Let's put it like that. They have a very strained relationship. And the book tells us that Esau dislikes his brother Jacob or Israel so much that it is a unquenchable fury. It is no talking him out of his passion to destroy Jacob or Israel. He will do anything. Now, it's a terrible thing to be at war with somebody. They can see you, but you can't see them. That is what we might call a sitting duck. I mean, getting picked off left and right. So we'll go into it. We're going to piece this thing right on together. And it's going to make more and more sense. We see through a glass darkly now, but when that which is perfect is come, that which is in part shall be done away. I'd like to thank everybody for stopping in. I got me a special guest back here. I got me a special guest over there. We're just growing. Now I'm just waiting for somebody to stop by and hear this word, and we'll be really on track. But I'm going to meet you all on next Sabbath in love, joy, and peace as the evening sun goes down.